So I teach a class called Social Justice. And in that class, we talk about many contentious issues. We talk about race, we talk about bias, we talk about colonization. And so to set the context in that class, you have to create an atmosphere. You have to create an environment where people can talk about difficult things. So I actually use the tools, the behaviors that support dialogue. We went through the different behaviors, listening non-judgmentally, and that was a really important one. Being aware that you don't know everything, these kinds of things. And we did it as a class. A few weeks later, when we were deep in a conversation around privilege, around male privilege, around white privilege, one of the students looked at me and said, without dialogue, we can never have these conversations. Those processes, those behaviors, that's what's most important.
So in my role as a special education teacher, I work with 15 different EAs within the program that I oversee. And in doing so, I've implemented an informal version of the analytic frame within our morning meetings that take place every day. And in order to kind of get everyone's perspectives, I have implemented a talking stick to allow that everyone's voices to be heard and not just one or two voices to overpower. And in doing that, the meetings have been very cohesive as we're really hearing everyone's perspective and take on a situation before we dive deep into the bigger issues around it.
So as a district support teacher, one of the things that I'm constantly thinking about are some of the complexities surrounding communication. So whether it be in a workshop, whether it be working with staff one-on-one, or whether it be during a presentation, I'm always looking for different ways to have participants engage with myself and with one another in meaningful ways. And so looking at some of the different protocols that had been put together as part of this symposium series was really effective in allowing some structure and some protocol so that all participants could learn to silence their inner voice while at the same time sharing their ideas and really truly listening authentically to what each other were saying. And all in all, it resulted in just stronger, effective, more meaningful ways of communicating.
There were several elements of the toolkit that I found extremely helpful as a classroom teacher, as a teacher leader of the Pro-D committee, and also as a vice principal. The discussion protocols help to establish norms, ensure everyone's voice was heard, and that everybody was able to hear the perspective of everybody else. So the discussion protocols were helpful working with kids. They were also helpful working with staff committee and dealing with bigger issues as a vice principal.
I found the tools from the symposium so helpful in my role as the staff committee chair in my high school. We had multiple contentious issues come through our committee, and before learning these constructive deliberation tools, I was looking for a vote, and those votes would in some way settle an issue, but there wasn't a degree of satisfaction. And so one of the tools in this toolkit is what I call the triangle of satisfaction, which calls in the idea of the substance of the conversation and the relationship and the process, and honoring those three corners helped work through a contentious issue to increase everyone's satisfaction with the outcome.
So after the conversations about the constructive deliberation, what struck me was the need to be intentional during meetings. Simply getting people together to have a conversation doesn't necessarily mean that we'll have an in-depth conversation that allows us to make informed decisions. So we actually took the protocols and the toolkit actually back into our educational facilitators meetings. And those are all the leaders in our school that meet together monthly. And the hope is that we can activate all the voices so that we can make better decisions. So when we first introduced the protocols, I think people weren't very keen. I think that they felt that the protocols were contrived, they were too structured, and I think some people were actually insulted that we even needed to have a structured conversation. But over time, people realized that the conversations were more deep and that we could actually use the various protocols because it allowed for equity in our conversations. It allowed us to have deeper conversations. It allowed us to activate all of those different voices. And because all of those different voices were being heard, we could make better informed decisions during our educational facilitator meetings.